So I just wanted to share what I think is probably the most exciting hard pull that I've ever been part of. So just to kind of set the stage here, we're in a severe drought. And in one of my last videos, somebody commented that they'd like an update on my food plots, um, my simple planting method, and I think maybe the seeds I use, stuff like that. So I'm going to try and incorporate a little bit of discussion about food plots and mock scrapes and everything as we go through here. But hopefully you're watching this. This is just incredible, the amount of bucks and does and fawns and everything using this transition plot. But to just kind of set the stage, we're in a severe drought and we had some decent soil moisture because we got 3 or 4 inches of rain in early August. So I made the decision to plant my fall food plots very early this year. So it was early August because that's the only moisture we had, the only moisture in the forecast. And actually, since early August, we've had no rain. We've had a couple sprinkles, and I think maybe there was even like a downpour for like literally like 10 seconds, but we've had no rain. So these food plots have really struggled to take hold. But all my food plots are planted in, I should say, all of my green food plots are planted in essentially the same thing, and that's winter rye, crimson clover, and in some cases, some radish and maybe some turnips. But those were only leftover seed from my cover crops from last year. So what you're looking at here is a food plot that was broadcast with winter rye and crimson clover, and then this one was very lightly disced in. And then I went and cut this elm tree down. There's a fence post you can see pounded in the ground there. And I just strapped that elm tree down, and that's a cedar branch hanging from there. I think that's a cedar branch. Pretty sure it is. But regardless, it doesn't matter. I've used hedge, I've used black walnut, cedar branches to make a mock scrape, and these deer are just pounding this area. So when I get asked a lot, what did your food plots turn out this year? Or was your food plot successful this year? To me, the definition of did my food plot succeed? Did my mock scrape succeed? Is it quote unquote working? Is what you see here. So this is a transition plot. So this is not an area that's meant, or not a food plot that's meant to feed deer necessarily. It's meant as like a social hub. It's in between preferred bedding and their destination food source. In this case, the destination food source is almost guaranteed to be some pretty lush alfalfa to the west of this location. So the deer are just coming through this area on their way to feed and then back to bed in the morning. And it's incredible. I think I put this camera out on September 10th, and that very first night, it started just getting hammered. The food plot you can see here is not doing the greatest, but the reason why I like using winter rye and crimson clover is because they will take a beating. They will take heavy, heavy, heavy browse pressure. And if you get a little bit of heat and some sunshine, and for us this year, some rain, it'll just keep coming back. It's very browse tolerant. So that's why I like to use it. And it germinates very easily, and it's very inexpensive. So if you're using high dollar marketed food plot seed for some of your food plots or for any of your food plots, I would, don't take this personally because that used to be me. I used to think that stuff was better, but it's just kind of a scam. You're a sucker if you're buying this stuff. Now, if you don't have good access to winter rye, crimson clover, I get it. You're at the local whatever it is store where you buy your stuff, and there's a bag of seed there for $20 and you pick it up. So I get that, but boy, it's hard to beat winter rye and crimson clover. Excuse me. In that mock scrape, they start hitting it later on in the video a little bit more, but they sure do go to town. And I like to have my scrape branches hanging vertically straight down. It seems like more deer will use them if they're hanging straight down like that. But isn't that just incredible how many deer are in here? So between September 10th and what would it be, October 20th, so a little over a month, we had 1,755 pictures on this small transition plot. Now, I'll be the first to tell you that every single one of my transition plots don't turn out like this. So this year on the cabin farm, I'm trying to think, maybe 4 or 5 transition plots, and 2 or 3 of them are working really good to funnel deer um, through. This obviously being one of them, but it doesn't always work out this way. So we're coming up. I just had a couple slower still images. So you can see this is plenty of daylight in the evening. The season's open now. So this is definitely one of those spots where I'd be targeting if I was hunting this farm. 2 mature bucks in the same frame there. And here we go again. They're in the scrape. I don't know if they're looking at locking antlers there. There they lock. But this is just, to me, this is just incredible how many mature bucks and big bucks and just overall deer numbers were in this transition plot. So there's deer here all night. This is a morning shot, so that's why I froze it. So there's deer coming through this transition area in the morning. This is again in the morning. These 2 bucks just locked antlers, and now they're apparently the one lost. There's also daylight pictures in the evening of mature bucks. So this is one of them areas you don't necessarily have to hunt right over this transition plot. You can if you have a good wind and you have good access. But I also have, I'm trying to think, there's a stand right over this transition plot. I call this the fence jump on the cabin farm. But there's also 3 other tree stands that are in relatively close proximity to where this transition plot is. So the danger with coming in and hunting right over this transition plot is that you'd burn it out too soon. Not saying you would, but that's the danger. So I always like to have alternatives besides hunting directly over that transition plot. But to me, this is just incredible, the number of deer and the number of mature bucks that are on this plot. And the amount of daytime activity, to me, is just almost mind-blowing. I think we have another still image coming up here. About 50 seconds, maybe. I don't remember. There's a big, you saw a little clip of a big 12-pointer. That would be like one of my, if I was hunting that farm this year, that'd be the buck I'd be after, is that mainframe 12-pointer. I got to think of a nickname for him. But here you got evening. Yeah, there's little bucks, but there's big bucks coming through almost every morning and almost every evening. There's something coming through there. So winter rye, crimson clover. If we had more rain, you probably won't see as much dirt as what you do. There's that 12-pointer I'm talking about. What a fantastic animal. I'd be targeting that buck. But that's on a morning, October 10th in the morning. Yeah, winter rye, crimson clover. And if we had some more rain, you'd probably see a lot more green there. But again, the way I define success on these food plots is, are they attracting and holding deer, or in this case, it's a transition plot. So are they attracting deer through this area? The key to a transition plot being successful is not what's planted in it. It's not your soil test or what your pH is or how much lime you added or the high price seed you put in it. The key to a transition plot like this being, quote unquote successful is its location, where it's placed between the bedding area and the destination food source, and the amount of hunting pressure it receives. So whether it's hunted or how it's hunted, and whether deer are getting bumped coming to it and away from it. So that's really the key to these transition food plots, and really any food plot, is their location and then how they're hunted or not hunted. That's what's going to make a food plot succeed. So when someone asks me, how are your food plots this year? How are they successful, or were they a success? To me, what defines if that food plot was successful or not is if it helped me reach my goal. And in this case, this being a transition plot, it's 100% successful because it's obviously funneling deer through this area. They can't help themselves for whatever reason. They just can't not come to this little transition food plot on their way back to bed in the morning or on their way to destination food in the evening. And that's the whole goal of the transition food plot. Thanks for watching. Good stuff.